Hey guys, and welcome to another GameXplain discussion. I'm your host, Andre Seegers, and we're joined today by fellow GameXplainer and Pokemon Master, Derek Bidner. And we're here to talk about the super short teaser video of what might be a brand new Pokemon game for the Wii U, of which we really know nothing about, but we're going to dive in and explore our thoughts on what it could be. And let me apologize in advance for the repetitive footage. I mean, it's all we've got. So let's get the thing started. Alright, Derek, so we've been talking about Pokemon a lot recently, in our analysis videos, mostly analysis videos. And that's because they showed off a lot more about the game at the recent Pokemon game show in Japan. And as part of that, they showed off a very brief snippet of some very weird scene that shows two Pokemon like in a fighting stance in a street. And it shows graphics far beyond anything we've seen in a Pokemon game before. So everyone's wondering, what exactly does this mean? And, of course we got into this too because we analyzed it a little bit in our last analysis. And, you're the one who put that together, basically, and, you thought this, it could be a Wii U game, and specifically, you thought it might look like a Wii U fighting game.
Yeah, I mean, most people, when they first saw this screenshot, thought, oh, it's a new, Pokemon Stadium, Coliseum, what have you type game, where you just sort of input your Pokemon and they can fight in 3D on your TV. Which is, a pretty standard thing. It still could, it totally could be that. We've seen it tons of times before, but there's a lot here that makes it seem like something else to me.
It definitely looks different because, the Pokemon Stadium games, they took place in stadiums, right?
Yeah. Stadiums are outdoor areas, but basically always had that sort of, playing field.
Right.
That you always see, and with the sort of Pokeball symbol in the middle, and then each Pokemon on different sides, and it's either, grass or gravel or something like that. Nothing too different. We have never seen a Pokemon battle in the middle of the street in 3D.
It's very bizarre, isn't it?
It is, because we got that realistic-looking car in the background, and posters everywhere. It's sort of it's just almost realistic. And a lot of people suggested it could be like an AR-type game. But with all the extra Pokemon stuff that seems fully integrated into it, I do not think this is an AR game. Right,
don't get me wrong, Japan has a lot of Pokemon-related things, but I'm pretty sure they don't have, fully Pokemon-centered districts like this seems to be.
Yeah, I think of, they've made one, and I don't think this is in that area.
Yeah.
They've recreated one. But, yeah, as I was just trying to look and pull out anything I could from this picture, other than the standard, this isn't very Pokemon battle-ish that we're used to anyway. I noticed in the top right corner that symbol, almost emblem type thing, which shows the crown with the wreaths and a fist in the middle of a Pokeball circle, type thing. And I've seen some people point out that it's part of the trading card game, which I honestly still have not looked up.
It's for the fighting. I actually know, but I play the Pokemon. I can't believe I know some Pokemon you don't.
It's been years since I played the trading card game.
Yeah, that's the fighting symbol, for the Pokemon, fighting type in the card game.
Yeah, so it's it all kind of seems to connect and point to, as we thought and as we said in the analysis, an actual Pokemon fighting game.
Right.
Which has never been done before.
No, this is
There's been some fan games of that sort of thing, but never Nintendo official.
Right.
And we seem to be on the right track, considering the hours after we posted the analysis and we had done all this research, 2 names were registered.
Right.
According to Silicon Era. Pokken Fighters, Pokken Tournament.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it sort of backs up, even Pokken Fighters backs up, Pokken Tournament, of course, backs up the whole theory. And even more interesting is the whole Ken in Japanese, one of the definitions is fist. So this all leads to sort of like a Pokemon fighting game. But that still leaves a lot of questions. It's the whole fact that, okay, do they just randomly pick which Pokemon get chosen for this? Or is it all the Pokemon? How much customization do we have?
No, I was going to ask you about that. So based on the screenshot, clearly they're using humanoid-type Pokemon. Pokemon that are able to, walk around on 2 legs and punch. Now, what types are the 2 Pokemon shown here? Actually, well, first off, what Pokemon are we looking at? One is
the one on the left is Lucario,
right?
And the one on the right is Blaziken.
Okay, and
it's interesting because both of them have been confirmed to have Mega Evolutions. which is makes some interesting choice. But they're also both fighting types. One's Lucario's fighting steel, and Blaziken's fighting fire. And if I had to guess, it's too complicated to have 600 plus Pokemon in a fighting game. You're not going to have
no, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, it'd be awesome if you could take your Pokemon that you trained, put them into the game, and they recognize all the moves and whatnot, and you can have some like basic melee type moves, and then as your special moves, the moves that you attach to them to begin with. Mm-hmm. It'd be awesome because people have always wanted to see Pokemon fights in sort of a real time situation,
right?
And fighting game would be the closest to it. And I mean, just imagine having this Pokemon that you've trained up has these 4 basic moves, and then they have, based on their like stature and the way they move in real life, have different type of melee moves, in addition to like building up a combo meter and then unleashing the special moves that you've attached to them.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
It'd be a really cool system, and it maybe it'll still be part of this, but I kind of doubt it because, like I said, it's a very complicated set of things you have to do. You have to program in all the Pokemon, every possible moveset, and then animations for each of them. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, what they could do is, kind of like what the Pokemon Stadium games did, where like most of the moves are like generically shared between all of the Pokemon, so if I can imagine like all the melee moves, which aren't customizable being, this is all, us just talking, by the way, not based on anything, but,
all just theory.
Yeah, but like all the melee moves, would just be, designed for each Pokemon, but then the special moves would be like kind of generic, like special effect related things, if that makes sense. You know what I mean, right? Like,
yeah, I think so.
Like just projectiles. Yeah, I feel like that could be, they could handle that. I think that could be possible.
Work around like that. It could, but I don't think there'd be a lot of satisfaction to that method. People will enjoy it. I think the much more likely one, especially with the fist being highlighted in the symbol, the fact that we have 2 fighting Pokemon here, that this is going to be a fighting Pokemon only tournament. The fighting type is, pretty common, and all of them have a humanoid shape.
Right.
I'm actually like looking up a kind of list here. There's quite a good range of fighting type Pokemon. Pure evolutions. You got the classics like the Machop evolution line, Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan,
right? All
of those, and they've always added new fighting Pokemon as the games have gone on. So there's actually, between all the fighting types we've introduced throughout the series, there's probably enough here to fill out a fighting game roster.
Yeah. Oh, I would not be surprised. And that's on top of Pokemon we don't even know about coming to X and Y potentially.
Exactly. We already got like Pancham and all them being confirmed as fighting types. So it is entirely possible.
Now it's kind of interesting that you mentioned the roster. Like, this actually does seem to be a perfect fit, having a relatively small amount of characters by Pokemon standard that would be a perfect fit for this game. And that takes me back to, when we were talking before we started recording, I did a search on Pokken, just to see if it might mean anything else. And I misspelled it. I typed it as Pokken, and I discovered that apparently Pokken's also the name for an NFC technology. This is probably completely unrelated, but I just thought I'd mention it. Because, the gamepad, the Wii U's gamepad also has NFC technology built in. So it makes me wonder, what if this game actually made use of the gamepad's NFC technology, where you actually scan in your figurines, into the game through the gamepad, and that's what you use to play in the game. And so, and your accomplishments in the game would be saved back to that figurine. So then you can take that figure with you to a friend's house or whatever, if they have the game, and carry your character with you wherever you go. Make this a more customizable, as you mentioned, fighting game.
It's entirely possible too, because I don't know how. I know you're not exactly totally aware on Pokemon stuff, but they have that Pokemon Rumble U coming out,
right?
And they have 20 exclusive figures for Pokemon using that exact same technology.
So so there is a precedent for this. Having a smaller amount of characters to make it completely, plausible, for them to do. it'd be a cash-making machine for them. You know, who wouldn't want to, you know, buy figurines to train up your own Pokemon, you know, for a fighting game, right?
Yeah, it'd be interesting because as we've seen already with Skylanders and Disney Infinity, that whole figurine thing makes pretty good bank.
Oh yeah, no, without question. Yeah, I mean, and Nintendo didn't build that, you know, the NFC technology in there not to use it. I mean, like, there was Pokemon Rumble, but you know, it seems like this would be the game that could really take full use of that.
Yeah, absolutely. But the whole, I mean, there's not much to go on here, like we said, but the setting, the symbol, the Pokemon they chose to show off, that's, you know, it's some interesting choices. It seems to be leading somewhere because, yeah, you have Pikachu in the background there, and you have the Pokemon Center, but it almost has that feel when you look at it like this of a fighting game stage. It really does. And I mean, Lucario and Blaziken are two very popular Pokemon, but they're not the most popular.
Right.
You know, Lucario has a bit of a fan base, and Blaziken's always, you know, had some fans, but usually you'd see, you know, some pretty you know, bigger names out there, legendaries or something like that. So I think these two choices are very interesting for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it is very interesting. I mean, the whole thing's just very bizarre, even. So on that note, like, what assuming this is a fighting game, assuming, you know, we're anywhere close to being, you know, hitting on what it might be, which seems to be the case given those registered names, especially. What do you think of this? What do you think of a Pokemon fighting game?
I'm all for it. Pokemon has been very experimental over the years with different genres and whatnot. Like, they just had that strategy game, Pokemon Conquest, that I really enjoyed. I thought it worked very well. So Pokemon can fit into different things. I mean, they've had a racing game, for God's sakes.
Right.
That was not great, but it's still, you know, they had a racing game. So a fighting game makes more sense than a lot of these other offshoots they've had, and I think would make something very popular. And Wii U has been struggling for some fighting games. I mean, they just announced that there's
games.
Yeah, that too. That's getting solved as the time goes on. But fighting games in particular not really coming to the system because they just announced that, like, the Street Fighter games, at least the newer ones, have no plans to come to Wii U. And so they sort of sated fans' appetites for it by releasing the old Street Fighter 2 games.
Right.
And it would be a great way for Nintendo to show off that, yes, the Wii U is a good place for fighting games between Pokemon and Brawl. I mean, well, Smash Brothers, I should say. Yeah,
you bring up a kind of an interesting point there. I mean, in a few different ways. I mean, so we already know if this is indeed a game, it has to be a Wii U game, you know, by just looking at it. And the Wii U, you know, is not doing great right now. But what does do great is Pokemon.
Yeah.
Now, Nintendo hasn't had, you know, they've had kind of a spotty track record in trying to bring Pokemon to the consoles, but they've never done, like, a true Pokemon game on the consoles. They've always done, like, spin-offs and whatnot.
Exactly.
And, you know, they need to bring out the big guns, really, and this could be it. Like, this is such a weird, unique way of doing it. Like, it's capturing two different markets. It's taking, like, you know, people who are fans of Pokemon, just probably are on the younger side. Not that it's a kid-exclusive game. I mean, tons of older people play Pokemon, like you, for instance.
Yes.
But, you know, it is a more children-focused game. But then you have, you know, the hardcore fighting demographic. And this game would be kind of, you know, presumably going after both of them. And that just makes a ton of sense for the Wii U, which needs, you know, it really just needs to reach out and bring more people in. And they would be capturing, like, you know, both the hardcore and the younger demographic all at once, you know, if they pull it off, as we think they might.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I mean, who knows who's developing this? They might have brought in the big guns for this. And I mean, let's put it this way. They have that partnership with Namco for Smash Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Namco does Tekken and Soul Calibur. They have a lot of experience with fighting games. So, you know, it's not the first time Nintendo's asked another company to work on some of their key franchises, as we've seen with Other M and F-Zero.
Yeah, we look at the screenshot too. You mentioned they did Tekken, you said, right?
Yes.
And Tekken's a 3D fighter. And if you look at the screenshot, you can see, I mean, it looks like, who knows if it's from, first off, this part isn't even from the actual game. It's probably just a mock-up or whatever. But, it looks like it's a 3D perspective. Like, it may not, I wonder if that hints at it not being like a strictly 2D game, like, Street Fighter. But, an actual, like, a 3D, spatial, fighting game, but, more akin to Tekken or Soul Calibur.
Yeah. From basically just this outlook on it, I agree with that. It does seem more 3D-ish, especially since usually the backgrounds are a bit more flat, or they'll be a bit more stylized, and the perspective is always at a 2D. They kind of have this sort of perspective for some 3D games as you're like shifting around.
Right.
So yeah, I would agree that this would probably be a 3D fighting game.
Yeah, alright, well I think that about wraps it up. Were there any final thoughts you had, Derek, on this, or any final things we didn't mention?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. I mean, it's a screenshot. Well, a few seconds of video, really. But
right,
yeah, it's interesting, as all new Pokemon stuff are, because you never quite know what they're going to do with the series. But I do think the whole fighting game aspect makes a lot of sense and is entirely plausible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, it actually has me somewhat interested, and it is a genre that Nintendo hasn't really explored. I mean, it wouldn't step on, if it plays anything like how we imagine it might, it wouldn't step on Smash Bros. Toes at all.
No, it wouldn't. This would be a more traditional fighting game.
Exactly, which is something Nintendo hasn't done really themselves, unless you count the Killer Instinct games, which are done by, Rare, of course. And that's, now on Xbox.
Yeah.
Alright, well, thanks for joining us, Derek, for this discussion, and thanks to everyone else for watching. Make sure to keep an eye on GameXplain.com for more on, presumably this game, hopefully, in the near future, as well as Pokemon X and Y and other things gaming too. And if you like this discussion, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter at GameXplain. There are links in the description below. We post all kinds of things there, so check it out. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Bye.